You got to be humble. Try to be a humble human being. And that's a few. Few of the things we can do in trying to find some semblance of happiness and peace of mind in this crazy world. And, one of the most effective methods of learning is by listening. And, in particular, listen to people who themselves will admit that they've fallen into one or more pitfalls in life, serious errors. And, try to, so you can help avoid it yourself. But if they're willing to talk, then you've got to be grateful, because there's a lot of people out there who'll call you their friends, but they're not. Well, what's that song, Smiling Faces? Sometimes they tell lies, because there is people that aren't righteous. They might come across as righteous and as your friend, but their hearts are impure, and they like it when other people fall. So they are not going to give you advice. And they've gone through the pain. They've suffered great pain, but they've hardened their hearts. And they have pride, and they're not going to share it with you. They're not going to warn you. They're not going to caution you. They're going to want you to fall in the pit. Whereas misery loves company, right? So there's those people. I'm not one of them. I'm really trying to be a good friend, a good brother to everybody, because I want to be forgiven. I want to find happiness myself. And part of making an amends is by admitting and confessing how I screwed up my life and how not to screw up your life. So it is therapeutic, and it's the first step to admitting. I mean, if you don't admit and confess when you screw up in life, then there's obviously, you haven't gone before God and said, hey, there's anything to forgive. So you're unforgiven, okay, because of your indifference. When you really, really want to be forgiven, then the first step is to admit when you're wrong. Sometimes you got to admit to God and man. God already knows everything. So it's just when you admit to God, it's just confirming what he already knows. But when you admit to men, at least, hey, they don't need to forgive you. That's their prerogative. Just as like your prerogative to forgive other people, your choice exclusively. But it's theirs too. But just because you say you're sorry and admit you were wrong and confess, okay, doesn't mean you can't expect them to forgive you. Okay, it's tough. You've got to earn it. It's like a reputation. Once you paint the picture of who you are, it's pretty tough to turn it around. And some people aren't so quick to forgive. And if they want to hold resentments, that's their choice. That's their issue. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. See, that's the whole thing. But at least you can wash your hands, because you've tried your very best. You've consulted God, said, God, give me the words to be effective. Okay, give me the right spirit, the right attitude, because I'm sincere. I'm about this, and I really want to win these people over. I don't want them to go to hell, and I'm trying to lead them to living water, to you, Father, and to your Son, Jesus Christ, but I can't make them drink. And that's no way. God doesn't want to make anyone drink. He wants you to serve him out of love. Okay, that's it. That's it. He doesn't want you to be afraid of him. That's not the kind of fear of the Lord he wants. He wants reverence and respect and honor. Okay, but he doesn't want that condition. Threats and coercion, no. So this is why you can lead a horse to water. You can't make them drink. It's their own free will and choice to love God and to love you and forgive you. And that we can all live in a copacetic manner and at peace with one another. We all have to decide that on our own free will and accord, but at least other people's blood isn't on your hands and head. If you haven't been silent, when deep down in your heart, you've got to say something. You've got to console somebody. You've got to educate somebody. You've got to inform somebody. You've got to attempt to empower somebody. You've got to try to save somebody from pitfalls in life, even if it's your enemy. So how much more are you going to do it for friends and family, right? And people who aren't your enemy, even strangers, right? You want to help everybody you can because you're trying to be happy. And to be happy, you got to have God's approval. He's the grantor of happiness. So it's all logical and intellectual. It makes sense. Men have a very hard time admitting that they are insecure and scared. It just it's not a masculine trait, and men are always trying to be masculine. But it's important that men admit that. It's not gonna emasculate you guys. Okay, you know, real men do cry. We have feelings, very real feelings, and if you haven't cried, guys, you're gonna. And it's just the way it is, and it's a good thing. And we lack self-control, and guys don't like to admit that. You know, I remember as a teenager when I was 19 years old that I just was so tired of not having sexual self-control that I actually took a cigarette, I remember, and I burned myself on the hand. It was just, I guess, kind of like why some people might get a tattoo or something that drilled down deep in my heart and soul. And I said, God, I want one thing. I just, you know, I want to have sexual self-control. And I took that cigarette and I burned it. And I still got the scar on my hand to this day. But I tell you what, it didn't work. It didn't help. I forget how long it was, you know, before I fell again. But, you know, at least my heart was earnest. I poured it out to the Lord. I mean, at that early age, I said I was tired of lacking sexual self-control. So to understand the gravity of the situation, ladies, and what men go through, you got to understand that we really don't want to lack self-control, sexually speaking. We want it, but it's elusive. We can't seem to wrap our arms around it. And even men in good marriages struggle with these things. I mean, these married men, even in the churches, they say the leadership, there's been studies showing that the majority of the preachers are struggling with pornography. I mean, and pornography, it sounds so, oh, wow, porn. I mean, preachers looking at porn. But remember, in its purest sense, we're talking about images of females. But of course, this is, like Jesus said, this is committing adultery. So even these men, happily married men, and their wives might know what they're going through, but they don't like it, and it might even end in divorce for some of these guys. Just porn. They may never, you know, fall into the real thing, but the wives they're not having it because they're just disgusted and they don't want it. And women don't seem to have the same battle that men have in this regard. So it's kind of a big deal. It really is for a lot of men. But, you know, this all stems from the original sin, because where did the idea that we need clothing come from in the first place, right? So guys, look at this. Well, I'm just God. These are the most beautiful creatures you ever created. What can be wrong with just valuing the beauty that you have created, God? You understand? So how easy it is for men to rationalize this. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is a big deal that we struggle with. It in our society, it is a big deal. It is ubiquitous out there with men. They struggle with this stuff. And they don't like it. They don't want it deep down inside. It doesn't mean they don't have it. And it goes back to just the Garden of Eden and God asking us, well, why what's your shame? Why are you hiding your nakedness? Who told you you were naked? You see, no other creature on the face of the earth has to face this kind of burden. We should be oblivious to nudity. We should be able to enjoy each other's beautiful bodies. It's God's greatest creation, right? Each other's beautiful human bodies completely in all their glory, right? No other creature has that burden. I don't want clothes, they say, right? Who don't want clothes, you idiots, right? The same thing with the money. No, these two things are hugely revealing. As humans, we've got to see, wow, so the organic thing goes back to wearing clothing. This whole struggle people have with nudity and the schism that around that, and the money thing that's invented, created, that we all struggle with. This love-hate relationship we have with money and our sexuality. You understand this burden that we're all living under? But one's organic, one's inorganic, but they both cause us a lot of stress. And only God really understands what we have to go through as human beings. So to sum this up, ladies, please be merciful with your men in regard to this. It's a real struggle, and deep down inside, they do not want that to lack self-control, sexually speaking. And because you have more self-control, you've got to kind of set an example, and you've got to help them. Okay, but be understanding and be gracious. Okay, try to be forgiving. Okay, because you're not a man and you don't understand, what this power is. These are drugs God put in our bodies. They're very powerful drugs. The procreation drive and drugs, and him telling us to go forth, be fruitful, and multiply, and men's history with harems and polygamy and all this. I mean, it is a huge struggle for guys. And you ladies, you